Depression is to live in the past. The anxiety is to live in the future, and both with fear. And when we get that realization to start like being more present in this very moment, we start like embracing eternity. And in that way, the past become a teacher, become a lighthouse in your path. Before I wanted everyone to feel what I was feeling, to get my experience. Now I'm respecting, the process of each person, and knowing that that person is exactly where he or she belongs in that moment of awareness.
For everybody, this is Paulo Nacua. I feel very honored and grateful that you're here and willing to share your wisdom.
A grandfather referred to this. For me, this is like a broom. I'm helping with this to clean my brother. At the end, what we comprehended is that we are healing ourselves. That's the thing. I'm not here to heal anyone. It's like more to awake the remembrance of everything you need is within you. There is a phrase that I love from Ram Dass when he says like, we are walking each other home. And now I'm saying with the medicines and with all of this, it's like, yeah, and we're awakening each other home. That's part of the mission of the medicines. Everyone is playing a part in this beautiful cosmic picture.
This is Paulo Nacua. Just really excited to have you on the podcast. This is the first episode. I feel very honored and grateful that you're here and willing to share your wisdom and your messages with me and whoever else chooses to listen. So just deep gratitude to you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Like this is a manifestation of a vision. When I met you like almost 10 months ago, the archipelago here in Denver, and like the resonance, was telling about my story, my mission, a vision, and you being a filmmaker as well, and yeah, having in my background as well that I went to study film, as part of this path, it connected us, and here we are.
Yeah, right. I was attending an event that you were speaking at, and it was a very strong story that you told that resonated deeply with me, and I felt very compelled to just reach out to you and hear more about your story. But before we start, I would love to hear about that little ritual you just blessed us with. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Of course, like that's the guaira, we call it, in Quechua language, guaira means wind. The elders call this plant Guaira sacha, just leaves of wind, like you can find it in the jungle and collected, and that, like reflects or makes the sound of the wind. And wind is the spirit, is the breath of life. And then that's, like the tool of the shaman, of the healer in the Amazon, like in the tradition of the yahe, the ayahuasca as is known. For us in Colombia, we call it yahe. And that's the tool, it's very simple and humble, and yet like can bring also like that sound of the jungle, like it's all the time, like that. No need of external music, like with the Icaros. And this is like an amplifier for that when the healer is in front of a patient or healing, it's like amplifying the thought. And with the harmonica, where is the sound. Harmonica came, of course, later to the jungle, before they have some like flutes, and then like the elders, the Siona tribe, that is my root with this medicine, adopted the harmonicas. So I'm just putting, asking for the permission to the territory, presenting myself, who I am, and asking permission to the great mystery, to the spirits of the territory, and for this that we are doing right now. Because we don't know who is going to hear it, whoever, and it's going to resonate in the same way that one of the stories that I told resonate with you. Now we're creating this together, you see? So I was like projecting all of that and saying like, okay, be open for that, to be a light, a small light, of gathering so many lights as well in the world. That's the thing, like opening the space, asking for permission, and expressing my gratitude for being able to be here.
That's beautiful. I'm also curious about the liquid that was in your mouth.
Oh, usually the elders prepare and taught us to prepare like different plants, plants of the jungle, different kind of, and just a preparation of months sometimes with alcohol or with some perfumes, and that is consecrated, in the ceremonies, and it's a way also like to open the space, like to clean. I was like the white, like, and like.
Nice. Oh, I love it. It feels cleaner.
It's a way of, like a grandfather, like refer to this, and in terms of for me this is like a broom, It's not like the grave. It's like very simple, like but it's, I'm helping with this to clean my brother, to clean. But at the end, what we comprehended is that we are healing ourselves. That's the thing. And I'm in peace with that, because saying like, okay, that's my path of my own healing. I'm not here to heal anyone. It's like more to awake the remembrance of that everything you need is within you, you see? So therefore, like, it's been a path of over 25 years, where we had like all very, hard tests in the path, but also very beautiful to understand that also those moments were like building this moment. You see, like the understanding of, okay, I'm not pretending to be, like a healer of others. It's like more that we are awakening all together.
Putting the agency in your own hands instead of the responsibility in somebody else's.
Totally. You mentioned like a word. It's like the responsibility in your own hands. Responsibility is the ability to respond, how we respond. And one of the things is that we as humanity being like giving away our own responsibility for everything. So complaining about others, like complaining about situations, complaining about everything, but not assuming that we are the only responsibles for ourselves. And that comes with when I got that was when I was in a very hard situation in my life, totally unjust, quote unquote, very extreme circumstances. And then I had all the tools at hand, or the excuses to become a victim of that situation. And I was like, wait a minute, this is, I'm in this path, so this is not happening randomly. There is a reason for this. And in that moment, I had to be like away from my family, like a year and a half. I was in another country. I said like, no, I'm taking full responsibility of everything that is happening to me or through me. And even if I don't remember, but I know that I manifested this. So I'm taking the responsibility, rather if it was in this life or in previous lives, and that changed the whole thing because I responded differently. So and from that moment, I got detached from the tendency to play the role of the victim. And I started like assuming that I want to play the role of the hero in my own story.
In my studies of shamanism across different cultures, I always find this same or a similar story of an initiation, of a really difficult moment that a healer or a shaman has to push through and come out on the other side. It's like a test or a challenge. Would you consider that moment that you're referring to, this really difficult situation, that initiation for you into this specific path?
Totally. But it was, and it's not just one moment, I can have very clear the moment of my initiation. I was 26, and according to the Mayan calendar, that is one of the tools that I've been studying for 20 years. That is to connect with the law of time and the synchronicity. But that could be like for another episode. And I was 26, and I went to live in the jungle with a legendary chief of the Siona tribe, the grandfather Francisco Piaguaje, Taitapacho. I had the honor to spend, part of his last years on earth, physically. Was such a gift. So I remember when I started going there, and I was at the beginning, my intention there was to complete my thesis in history that I was finishing my studies. But so I didn't go to the jungle, finding for my initiation or something like that. I was with another idea. And then it took me, I didn't see that coming, that when it just was opened, the clarity of the being, of the spirit there. I consider that moment of my initiation in the path. But then, there are many challenges, I spent also almost 15 years, I belong to a close community, with very strict rules and, very intense work with the medicines, and then with the detachment of that, to become the storyteller of my own story, in connecting many stories. And during that path, that process that I was referring was definitely, that put me in another stage of awareness. So definitely, it was the catalyzer to be here, and to be free and able to share, and to see okay.
Would you be willing to share more about that story of that challenging situation that you overcame? I know it's a powerful one.
Sure. I mean, one of the beautiful things about that is that I can share with others my stories, or a story or a situation that I overcame, and that can resonate with other situations, for the people, especially now in the world and with the situations that we're living. So at that time, I was living in California, in LA, because I received the call, if we speak in terms of the hero's journey. I was starting doing the ceremonies here in the north, after my process of being a student, and when I received the authorization from the elders to start sharing, I mostly start doing it here in the north. That was related with many stories and prophecies that I was following. Then I was invited to visit a mountain. They spoke about go to Mount Shasta. Never heard of it. What's that? They started telling me okay, let's go. And I went there 2015, and everything changed from there. I received like a strong revelation there in the mountain. And long story short, like the spirit was sending me to have to go to LA and to study film. I was like, this is crazy, you know. I wasn't anymore like in my 20s, you know, with like 37 years, something like that, you know. And moving here, you know, one of the most expensive city in the world, and not having like a single dollar in my pocket, and you know, like I have to come with my family to move. I don't know how's that going to happen, but 1 year later, I was there in Los Angeles Film School studying, and because I did, you know, like follow the steps. We do some things that is a tradition very strong in the Indigenous of the north of Colombia, the Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta. The Mamos, they are specialists doing pagamentos, what they call it's payments, but it's more related as an earth offering. So like with crystals, with these special rocks, with medicines. So I put like one of those in the Hollywood sign, you know, like in the Punt in Hollywood, with a whole story there as well, like with helicopters and everything. So I was doing it, you know, like, and that was the most challenging times in my life were those first 6 months, what I'm doing here, you know. Well, it happened and we ended like being there 3 years. I finished the school and we said like, okay, this is then the place where we're gonna build our mission, our, you know, organization in a way. You know, to have a land, to build a small temple that I was receiving as the blueprint of it. And we said like, okay, we're staying. It was a very challenging time for my wife as well, you know, holding 3 little girls. One of them was born in California, the last one. So we returned to Colombia with the idea to come back to the States. And in our way back, we stopped in Mexico. And we got some troubles and there, you know, with the authorities, you know, like part of the corruption of our countries, the things that I was saying, you know, like involved in things that I didn't do it at all, you know. And after like being in that hard situation to be like, you know, even like going to prison for 1 day, you know, and then they say like, oh, if you sign here, you're free to go. And signing that was, you know, like to accept that everything that they were saying, you know, it was truth, and it was not truth. I said like, I'm not signing this, and I'm going to the last consequences. So I had to spend like a year and a half, you know, like going to a trial, you know, in a court of another country without having the tools, no money, but just to say like, to tell the truth is worth, you know. Even I had to be like away from my family and the whole thing. So it was very challenging, but life-changing for sure. And I connected with the spirits of the territory there, and we did like very profound work as well, you know, preparing for this moment. So that's in a short way like the story of what happened there.
Thank you for sharing that. So inspiring that you rose to that occasion and you chose truth in those moments. I feel like it'd be very tempting to just sign the paper to be free.
Totally.
Before we go too far, I'd love to hear more about like how you were called to this specific path and like what your background is, like how you really started working with medicines and healing, and where did it all start for you?
Well, this path is coming through my mother. My mother, we belong to a indigenous tribe in Colombia, the Muisca tribe. That's from the center where I was born in Bogota, the center of Colombia, that's the Muisca tribe. But this is a tribe that forgot what they were, or what we were, or what we are with the colonization. And like in a process of the last 30 years, probably start like waking up the memory of the ancestors and the territory. And that start also like to waken in us as mestizos, you know, like as Westerners, like that adopted that culture to, like that connection, that feeling with our own roots. And where I live in the south of Colombia, in Pasto, we're neighbors with the Amazon, with the Putumayo, is the name of the state where the Amazon begins from. In that part, in the border with Ecuador. So that is the Siona tribe. But this tribe is from the tradition of the Yahe, what is known as the Ayahuasca. So they start like coming out to the cities, and the closest big city was Pasto. So my mother started like drinking the medicine with the grandfather Francisco at that time when he was invited to do some talk, and it was everything like very new at that time. I started like doing ceremonies with some people of, like the hippies of that time. My mother was there. Started like creating, like growing that desire for these people to know more about, because all the connection with the spirit was through religion, and it was, such a resistance for that. But then like connecting with a medicine that started like revealing, like start like moving the whole thing. So my mother was drinking Yahe for 15 years. And then I entered in my adolescence, and it was, complicated, like many stories with bullying involved, like traumas of being abandoned or not being loved enough. And I had like a wonderful family, like even like knowing all those situations that most of us share, related with our childhood. And she started like inviting me to, and I was like in a fight with my mother, like, I was like, no, those things that you do, like, I just, and I remember I was like 15 years old, and my mother invited the grandfather Francisco to our house in Pasto. And I was like ready to go out to hang out with friends and doing nothing a Friday night. And she said like, oh, grandfather, here's my son, please give him a blessing. And I was like, okay, like very, and then he took the banana like and blow on my head, and I was like, what is he doing? Like seeing it that way. So years later, I couldn't imagine that it would be like thanking this being, for open to me like the doors of heaven, literally, like. But I had to go, like, and then I went to live in Europe for a year, and I came back. I was in college. I started like hearing from a professor that I admire, speaking about the medicine and the Yahe, and he was like the one that I was referring, like resonated. And he spoke, who here have tried the Yahe? And I was like, oh, it's so close to me, but I cannot raise my hand. So like next month, I organized like a trip to go to my city and to have a ceremony, the first ceremony with Grandfather Francisco. I was like 20 or 21, a bit late. And everything changed from there. I started like drinking once a year until I decided to do my dissertation history about like the ceremony of and why this indigenous, like merge and with figures like Jesus Christ or the Virgin Mary or prayers that we knew but didn't mean, what. So that was the beginning, started exploration, then it came like the initiation, like, what is this?
Powerful moment that when he blessed you like that. Would you be able to speak to more of your traditions and rituals that have kind of been passed down to you through elders or other people of influence in your life?
Yes. Well, that was, like the beginning of my path with this plant, with this beverage that actually is the mix of two plants. One is the ayahuasca. The scientific name is the Panisteriopsis capi, and that is mixed with the chacruna or chagropanga. That's the difference with the ayahuasca from Peru, that the second plant is different in Colombia. And that's a mix, a preparation of many hours, like the whole process. And I studied this tradition for 15 years in a row, like in a very intense way, like assisting to ceremonies every weekend. Every weekend for many years. And I explored like many paths in that way, like connecting with more and more elders, because that's what started happening, that different tribes from Colombia start like bringing their tools to the center for the people of the center to remember who they were, you know. So it came people and tribes from the Amazon bringing the word of the medicine of the world with the ambil. This is the honey of the tobacco, with the tradition of the mambe, that is the sacred coca leaf. And from the north, the mamas of the Sierra Nevada, they were bringing the memory of the territory. So all of that started like to coming to us, with different tools, with different medicines. It was not just there only the yahe, as the pristine tradition in the jungle. We were also aware that we were playing a different role. And that role and my role, as also like a world bridger, was connecting those medicines as well with the north, with the territories. That came, like the knowledge of a prophecy or many prophecies. For example, the Eagle Condor prophecy that has become like the kind of the archetype of the prophecies for many tribes here in America. And that comes or is known more from the Hopi tradition. And the Hopis said like centuries ago that one time of darkness will be upon this land with the arrival of the conquistador and all of that. But they said like after a time of very deep darkness, it's gonna sprout, like the seeds of a new time, a new earth, a new time that is going to be a time of peace and harmony for the earth. That is how like studying in my role as historian, anthropologist, and like a follower of this path, other traditions like the Mayas and the prophecy of the 7 hells and the 13 heavens. And that was also like a closing of a process of an era that arrived in 2012. That was what we heard and didn't quite understand, at that time. But the thing is, the enlightenment and the beginning of a new era, a new cycle, a cycle that is, like compelling as well other bigger cycles. One of 5,200 years, like the cycle of history as we know it, like the beginning of the civilizations. But then it's another cycle of 26,000 years. So I start like connecting with the Mayas in that way, to understand what is the process of our planet in us as humanity in an evolutionary process that we are entering in. So I recognize that the medicines were like tools coming, and that it was and it is always the need to treat these medicines with so much respect, like honoring the traditions and not doing like lightly, because like is as an elder said to me once, the medicine is like a knife. Is a knife good or bad? Depend of how we use it, right? It's the same thing with the medicine. So with the medicines, you can also like eventually do harm, right? So it's like requires a lot of awareness and presence. What we are doing, because the tricks of the ego are all around, and this cannot be the path for, increase egos. It's quite the opposite. It's like, like being tools to dissolve that character and to recognize the actor behind the character. So in that way, I started also connecting with other ways of healing, other traditions, and coming to the north, like Lakota traditions, the sweat lodges, like, oh, rocks are medicines, and then animals, and then came like a medicine. I was told in Revelation that because I was at the beginning very close in the regulations of one medicine, then like, no, you're going to be like a bridge. So you're going to connect with other medicines as well. At that time, I connected with the Yopo. There's another beautiful medicine that also use the ayahuasca as the capi, chewing the bark. So, and connect us with the celestial realm. That's what we call as well here in the West, like the fifth dimension. It's more related to enter into those states, but also like being rooted. And then it came the connection with the Bufo alvarius, some medicine coming from an animal, a toad of the desert of Sonora. And I started like doing the study and asking the permission and asking like to come the right mentor for that medicine process of 8 years, and doing the earth offerings, in different sacred places, and in that way integrate that into as tools that we use to awake each other. There is a phrase that I love from Ram Dass when he says like, we are walking each other home. And now I'm saying with the medicines and with all of this, it's like, yeah, and we're awakening each other home. That's part of the mission of the medicines. Therefore, different medicines treated with the due respect can open us, doors of perception. And the way that I found, that we can anchor that awareness into our daily lives is the path of meditation. That's how I connected with teachings of the East, specifically with the teachings and the wisdom of Paramahansa Yogananda, a yogi that came here to the States in the 1920s, and established like a center in California to connect the East and West, like all the mind, all the science with the meditation, the spirit. Therefore, I always say, like, for me, like the medicines are like a Ferrari to go to heaven, but meditation is the freeway. So it's like how we are anchoring that. So connecting north and south in the prophecy, the eagle symbolizes the mind, the superior mind. The action of the mind is to create. And the south, as the bird symbolizes the south, is the condor. That's more related with the heart, the connection with the earth, with the roots. And that's what we are doing, integrating. Therefore, like I felt compelled to come to this, to do this mission, doing my part, not saying like, I'm fulfilling. No, we all are fulfilling those prophecies because the prophecies are actually happening within. So fulfill the prophecy of the condor and the eagle. You can do it in yourself when you connect your mind with your heart. And you get into that balance, and in that harmony. And east and west, you do also like Indu, like the cross. That is not for us to refer anymore about suffering. It's about balance, like that's the Chacana, the Southern Cross, for the cultures of the South. The Incas, the Tahuantinsuyo, and other prophecies. Like it's going to be like the time is coming. So in these times that we are living, like we are in the edge of war, like experiencing that and desperation and no hope, we definitely have a perspective and, like a vision, and we trust because we have seen it, that there is at the same time a big awakening in our planet, a big awakening process.
But I love how you speak to these different melting, it's almost like a melting pot of different traditions, and everything is all seeming to come to one point to try and gather energy and momentum to eventually rise us all up collectively, up to the occasion, up to our highest selves. And I love how you mentioned that there's these two different paths you could take. You could either use the medicine as a tool, and like I love the Ferrari reference. It's a fast and quick way to those teachings. But as a meditation practitioner myself, I do really enjoy just doing it every day, feeling that source energy through a very, very much like individual process, not without any assistance through different tools or medicines or plants, just using my body and my breath to achieve balance and harmony. So I guess what kind of advice would you give somebody living in the modern world with all of these distractions and difficulties we deal with to reconnect to that harmony and balance in life?
It's very important, like to refer to that meditation, to that silence, to that quietness, because what the world is offering to us is the opposite. It's filling all our spaces, all our time, and we're living like in a time that is a time of it's a fake time. So that will be like also like a subject to go deeper another occasion. But the thing is that we are reconnecting with natural time. Some beings, I don't know who, I don't care, but like manipulate the codes of time in order to get us under control. The Maya says, like, who controls your time controls your mind. So we're pretty much stuck in our minds. And the minds are always bombarding us with there is no time to be. It's like time to think. And as Buddha said, like, mind is a magnificent servant and a terrible master. So taking as responsibility of ourselves is like to be again in control of our own life and to put like the mind into the service, like the powerful tool that it is to create. But these are, like elements, like the medicines are working like alarm clocks. And when you set your alarm clock because you need to wake up at a certain time, you do that when you're awake, right? You don't go to sleep and then set your alarm clock. So it's the same thing with the medicine or any path, any tool that you find. That's an alarm clock that you set up for yourself, saying like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm manifesting you right now. You are manifesting me. You see, like in every person that we cross paths, we're doing the same, it is us. So to take that awareness of that we are creating what we are living is very liberating, because then you have the possibility to say, okay, what is the life that I want to create? What is the life that I want to live? But that requires to be grounded as well, like to be present. So therefore the importance of meditation. And the medicines are tools we cannot get dependent of. Oh, if I don't do this, I won't be able. I start like, for example, speaking of the medicine of the toad, that's very profound. I don't do that medicine anymore. But I provide, I share, but I explore that realm. And now what I need is to remember where I went, where I was, where I am. That's what we are learning to remember. So no need of external things, just we're learning how to remember. That's part of our mission, to share like we just need to remember because everything is within. And then in that way, assuming our own responsibility of everything, we also won't be waiting for a savior to come us and save us. Or people like in my own tradition, like one of my gurus, my figures is Jesus Christ. And I love him and his teachings and the traditions, but I'm seeing, the essence rather than that all the other stuff, like sometimes religion or, dogmas that are enclosing us. It's like, oh, recognize that the second coming of Christ is not going to be like Jesus coming in a cloud and coming here, I'm here to save you because you remember me. No. as Paramahansa Yogananda said, like the second coming of the Christ is when you awake the Christ consciousness in your heart, in yourself. We all are made of that. So we just need to remember to wake that up in us. So that's going to be like the fulfillment of that prophecy, the second, okay, connected with the cosmic, with the Christ consciousness, and from there with the cosmic consciousness. When Jesus spoke about, I am the path, I am the truth, I'm the life, he wasn't speaking about Jesus, speaking about Jesus Christ. That's the Son of God. That's the Christ consciousness that is present in all of us, that is present in all the creation. You see, like, it's a different way to see, like, in our modern life, if we connect with that space of silence, with that temple that is in our hearts, we can enter the kingdom of heaven every day, every time, because it's, as Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is at the reach of your hand. So it's here, it's not out there. So the medicines are tools to realize that, but the ultimate goal is just to be with ourselves, to see, like, if we enter into the silence in like 10 minutes a day, whatever you give the space to give thanks. Do it in your own way, or follow a way that resonates with you. That's going to be like the tool. As Yogananda says, like, we have all a portable paradise in our hearts.
Yeah, I feel like if you ask somebody, a modern day person, what their portable paradise is, they'd probably refer to their phone. But I think it's lovely that you consider it, just this internal temple or this heart. You've mentioned a few like different deities or people you look up to. I know Yogananda is someone you keep mentioning who's deeply close to me as well. Is there anybody else that's maybe close to your tradition that you haven't spoke to yet that you specifically like to work with?
Many, many, because like even when we refer to the word shamanism or shaman, that's a word that is not completely digested by all of us, because that's a word that comes from Russia, northern Russia, or Siberia, one of ancient, and they use, that's the word that they use. And I asked to a person that went there, a physician, what does it mean, shamanism? And he said, like, okay, shaman is the one who speaks with the spirits. So, like, translating that into here the different names, it's Kuraka, Taita, well. That's what we're learning and connecting, with the other side of the picture. Therefore, like, it's also like our connection with death as a teacher as well. For example, I recognize death as one of my gurus, as the mother of death, because Buddha said, like, we came to life to learn how to die. And the yogis in the India said, like, the secret of life is to learn how to die before you die. In that way, when you die, you won't die. It's the recognition, the awareness that there is no death in the way that we conceive it. There is no death. The opposite to death is not life. In words of Eckhart Tolle's, opposite to death will be birth. Birth and death is a process of life, of eternity. So, in that way, like, it's my path, it's my way. For some people, they are not just, but they can find the whole thing with one of those stories. If you're a Hindu, if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, if you're a Jew, if you're a meditator, there are so many, like, tools at hand now. For me, it's like the game of, the creator, the lovingly father, lovingly mother that is playing a sacred game with us, to find the treasure, as we did when we were kids, right? you get there on the station, you get like a clue, like in those clues, those tools, For example, A Course of Miracles. Wow, I have seen, like the people like following deep, those teachings, how they are getting into that awareness. There are many, many different paths. And the beauty of that for me, that I can relate with many of them, probably because that's my Mayan sign. I'm the white magnetic mirror, reflecting the endlessness. So I can, but there is other people that just with one, of those tools can find the wholeness. So it's not saying like you have to mix as mixing because that's delicate as well. But in my case, when I connect with the East, so I find beautiful beings, spirits, liberated beings, true gurus. The meaning of a guru is the one who dissipates darkness. It's the one who overcomes the ego already, It's a difference with us that we are in that path, but we all are, like becoming. Therefore, like all the deities, like I mentioned Mount Shasta, like in the energy there of the I am presence, like the seven rays, like the archangels are all around present in our prayers. And we go to the jungle, the deities, the elders, that passed, that gave us, they are reference for us, they are spirit guides that connect us, in our traditions, like to connect with the essence of Jesus, to the essence of the mother, the Virgin Mother, and to see her all around in different ways. The Pachamama, Saraswati, Lakshmi is the Divine Mother, the creation itself. You see, like in that way, you realize that you are not alone. You never have been, and you have all of that manifesting there, like, okay.
I love how you consider death as one of your gurus. Like, I also have a close relationship with death, and I attribute death to being really the catalyzer for me to start this spiritual journey of my own. And I'm just curious if you have any advice for somebody who's just starting on this path.
Nice you asked that today, because yesterday we had a ceremony with the toad, and came a very nice guy, in his 40s, a doctor. And he was so anxious, like, because this ceremony that lasts 15 minutes, like the process of with this specific medicine, rather with the yahe or ayahuasca or yopo, is like the whole night ceremony. Here's express, but it can take you to that threshold, that connects death, life, like this world breacher. And he was like so scared, so scared. And then in a moment, after two other people that did their process, I asked him, okay, my friend, so what is, we spoke about fears, about my stories, my own process, my initiation, overcoming fear, like discovering truth, no truth, trust. Yeah, as the opposite of fear, like as an open door here to love, to fall in love, is when you trust. And we spoke about that, but then I said, like, okay, what is your relationship with the spirit? I asked. And he was like, I have no connection with the spirit. He said, like almost like in a shock. So like, okay. And his intention was like, I just want peace, I'm suffering from anxiety, so strong. So we did the medicine, and he got it, the awareness of, okay. And he came back and said, like, I have such a powerful mind, that I didn't allow to enter the divinity through me. My brain is so strong, he said. And then he asked the question that you are asking now. Okay, now what's next? What's next? Yeah, hold that, remember this moment. And I refer to him because read this book, Also, I helped to change my life. I recommend the book of Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi. There are many ways in the way that but that maybe cannot resonate with you, But you can hear the story of Ram Dass, Richard Alper, like getting to the top of the mind society, like a renowned psychologist in Harvard, and start like entering, what is this, Those are good stories, like for us as Westerners, especially here in the North, that you have, like such a developed mind, to create, this order, but to get that be permeated, that you allow yourself to feel that love, because that's what we all are looking for. We all are, as humans, are looking for the same thing. That is peace, that is calmness, that is joy. And the only thing that can provide that is the spirit. That is what it is. That's everlasting joy. That is peace. We don't name it as you want it, Don't compromise yourself, but just allow yourself to be loved. Allow yourself and choose your path, Start going to the mountains, these beautiful territories. Start just spending time in nature. Get away a bit from your cell phone, Get away a bit from all the rush of shopping, of the bombarding, and go to the silence. There are so many different ways. You follow your intuition. Now that you are entering, you're getting aware of who you are, remembering who you are. Papaji is a saint of India, disciple of the great saint Ramana Maharshi. And he says, nothing that has a beginning or an end, it is real. So ask yourself, what is real? What is real in you? Because it's not this character. It's not the character that we're playing. This is a character. It's a beautiful one, We have to honor this illusion, but this is a dream, a sacred dream. We need to awake inside the dream. So honor your intuition, follow your heart. Remember who you are. There are many different ways,
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. Yeah, I feel like with me, when I think about my journey, I very much took a similar path where I had this realization that something needed to change, or that I needed to progress spiritually in my own self. And then I found Ram Dass and read some Ram Dass books, and then I found Yogananda, read Autobiography of a Yogi, started a Kriya practice, and now I'm here, and so
here we are.
It's great advice to anybody watching or listening. It's just like there's many different ways you can go about it. You could even just take a trip into nature and just go sit with nature spirits, or you could participate in a ceremony to awaken your awareness and then start walking that path a little one by one. One thing that comes to mind right now is, could you speak to the importance of integration? I know that's a very important step for a lot of medicine practices and ceremonies.
Well, two things. Another advice is not to rush yourself. Because when you get that, you say, oh, I've been wasting my time and I have to do everything now. Don't rush yourself, okay? Breathe. Breathe and be aware. And when I say follow your intuition, if you're meant, like one of your alarm clocks is a medicine, so it's gonna connect with you in that way, naturally. So be aware where, you wanna go, how this person is treating the medicine, how is he or she living, their own lives, to reflect that you go wherever you belong, in that experience. And after that as well, don't get attached to the experience itself, but to the memory of it. And the memory is what you're gonna bring bit by bit to your daily life. If not, can happen what happened to us, And that's also like what is pretty about this with the stories, is that I'm sharing stories that I've lived myself. I speak of Ram Dass, of Yogananda, of Christ, but through my own experience, I have known them, in the essence of their teachings. And I experience myself as I have experienced death myself, because that's part of the process, So in that integration process, it's important to start like bringing bit by bit, like the essence of that. If not, you will get attached to, okay, now I went to the ceremony and I could enter heaven, and then like 3 days later, I'm again in hell here. With depression, with anxiety, it's like, okay, don't get attached. Remember, that's just an alarm clock. So bring back, give it the space to the silence. That for me is the key of integration. Like start bringing that realm, that kingdom into this kingdom.
Much like advice for anybody who's dealing with like anxiety or very rushing minds, like cultivating more presence and just allowing it to sit and be there for what is. How does one go about finding a shaman or a healer to help them, assist them on this journey? Is it something that they can just sit back and wait for somebody to appear in their life? Because that's happened to me a few times where I've just been open to it and it just kind of happens. But is there also just some steps somebody should take to seek out a healer or somebody to help them with problems that they have and that they're dealing with?
Exactly what I was saying, like is follow your intuition, and you start like feeling the call. If you start like feeling the call to sit with a medicine, in that moment the ceremony began in that moment. Because in that moment you start like preparing for that encounter, that sacred encounter. So I can tell you, you can send that out to the universe, to the creator, to say like, okay, show me, you see, like guide me where I supposed to go, like, like opening that possibility to trust that everything is being conducted for you to go back home. It's there, and it's for everyone. So that's my recommendation. And then you're gonna, oh, no, it's not here. Or, oh, yeah, that's exactly, or receive. You're gonna know, you're gonna recognize. And that's also important because that's giving importance to yourself, to, oh, okay, I'm manifesting this, I'm asking for this. It's gonna come naturally. But you can also, like, if you are impelled to seek, we are doing retreats in Colombia, inviting the elders, to hear their stories. Yeah, you're welcome. There are many people doing it. So, like, where it resonates with what comes to you, like, go for it.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much power in your intuition. And oftentimes we might not follow the intuition and then we'll maybe regret it or realize that maybe we should have followed that gut instinct, that gut feeling. So I feel like we talked about the past a little bit. We talked about the present. Now, what about like the future? Do you have any, like you spoke to prophecies and things that are happening. Do you have any hopes or visions about the future and like what this type of path may sprout or grow?
Totally. When we speak about the past, it's not in a linear concept that is, like behind us. We used to think in our Western civilization, we conceive like time as a spiral more, like it's a radiant. So we're learning to be more in the present. The depression is to live in the past. The anxiety is to live in the future, and both with fear. And when we get that realization to start like being more present in this very moment, we start like embracing eternity. And in that way, the past become a teacher, become a lighthouse in your path. Because our prayer is very clear, okay, we're building heaven on earth. That's the prophecy, on earth. And another thing that is important for us is we ask to the divinity, to the Divine Mother, and we say like, of course, we will keep learning always, but now we want to do it without suffering. We suffer enough. We suffer enough. So that's part of our prayer, to say like, okay, Divine Mother, the way how you want to relate with that energy, like divine intelligence, however, guide me with gentleness, as a mother does, with the gentleness. So in that way, we are building, a present that we can project and see like in our future generations, our children, the children of our children, because we are getting aware of how short this experience is, and as a paradox, it is a not ending story. We're here for eternity. We're here for eternity. We're meant to awake and to come back to the source, right? So in that way, what we are doing with that is just surrender to this possibility of to live a beautiful life, a good living. That's what we are building now. You see, like we have a life plan that is meant to be for 1,440 years. So I'm not thinking just in myself, what I'm going to build for me or for my kids. And it's like we're growing as a family, as a human family, you see. Also like recognizing that doesn't mean that I have to connect with everyone. Everyone is in their own process. And we learn also to honor that. Before I wanted everyone to feel what I was feeling, to get my experience. Now I'm respecting, the process of each person, and knowing that that person is exactly where he or she belongs in that moment of awareness. It can happen like a person that is not related with spirituality at all or with anything, but is doing his own path in preparation, and come a catalyzer in a moment. Is like exactly we're all the same. No one is above, no one is below, just there, you see, like in the present. But we're building that right now, right here. So when I went, I remember to visit an elder in the jungle in the Amazon in a ceremony, and I was like it was like 2013. And I was wondering, okay, Great Spirit, what happened with the 2012? I was kind of waiting, like the angels coming down and the whole stop of and the voice told me what was meant to happen in the 2012 happened. Rather if you felt it or not, it is happening. But the task is in your hands, in the hands of the people. It's not something, again, it's not something that is going to come from outside. It's not a savior or it's coming outside, or angels or aliens going to come. They are there, helping, being part of this, but it is us who build this, build that new time, that new earth. So do it. I said, do it. So that's what we're doing. And it's like full of hope, full of joy. Have 3 little girls. Imagine, it's like, yes, we trust in this life.
It's such an inspiring message. There's so much fear out there. And so to hear that such a hopeful and positive message toward the future, just returning back to the self, being that lighthouse, it's such a beautiful message. So thank you for sharing that. Well, I just feel deep gratitude for you sitting down with me, sharing your wisdom and your messages and your stories with me. And I would just like to ask if you wanted to add anything that maybe we didn't cover that you wanted to share.
Well, we cover a lot in terms, but yeah, also I want to express my deepest gratitude, for this moment, because this is also part of the manifestation of that vision, like saying, like, doing this, like so prepared, so nice, so well, to share. Then I overcame so many fears as well, like, I don't like social media, I don't want to show up, but I think it's the time, and this is like an opening space for that to say, okay, here we are, I'm at peace recognizing who I am, because I can recognize that way who you are, who everyone is, and that's what we are doing. And the Bible is written in the book of Revelations. St. John speaks about the 144,000, souls, and that's also related in the Mayan prophecies, from Pakal Bhutan, the 144 number is a key number. Say like, okay, there will be like 144,000 souls on this planet that are awakening. So like that's gonna help to awake more and more and more. So that's what we're doing, walking each other home, awakening each other home, and that's everyone is playing a part in this beautiful cosmic picture. So here we are.
Well, I don't see any better way to end it than that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Paulo Nacua, everyone.